all these data capturing mechanisms, it allows supply chain to do their job more effectively, capture that data more effectively. And with stronger data, now you know exactly what to reorder, and you reduce potentially not having the right product there at the right time. And I think when the clinicians see that, that's going to build trust for them. They're not going to need to worry about that as much. And so they can focus back on the patient.
Without supplies, there's no surgery. Without products, there's no patient care. Welcome to Power Supply, the healthcare supply chain podcast focused on helping you navigate the intricacies of logistics, purchasing, contracting, and supplier relationships. Each episode, we speak with healthcare executives, supply chain leaders, and innovative entrepreneurs from across the country as they share their stories, experience, and expertise on the industry we love. From the loading dock to strategic sourcing, from buyers to the C-suite, and across the enterprise, we tackle the real-life issues impacting the healthcare supply chain. Whether you're tuning in for conversation or inspiration, we're glad you're here. You're just in time to hear it from the source and stock up on insight. So sit back and plug into Power Supply.
On today's episode of Power Supply, we will speak with Nathan Wicks, VP of Commercial Technologies and Engineering at Cardinal Health WaveMark Solutions. We're going to talk about integrating technology, not just AI, but integrating technology into your healthcare supply chain so that you can leverage AI. But it's going to be an AI conversation. We've had a lot of them lately, and that's because this is one of those conversations that just continues to evolve at a pretty rapid rate, Hayes.
Absolutely. It's rapidly, and every conversation seems to be dealing with this. So stick around, learn about the digitally automated supply chain, and you'll enjoy it.
All right, everybody stay with us. We'll be right back with Nathan Wicks.
I'm Hayes Walder.
This is Gary Skinner.
And I'm Justin Poulin.
From the studios of Healthcare HQ, you're listening to Power Supply.
Joining us now, Nathan Wicks, VP of Commercial Technologies and Engineering with Cardinal Health WaveMark Solutions. And Nathan, we're going to be talking about integrating technology into your health system supply chain, and specifically, what AI can do for you. And I'm going to go ahead and kind of set the table a little bit. I love that we're going to dive in to various types of AI and how to apply them in use cases, because I feel like there's been so many AI presentations and conferences over this last year, but a lot of times it's very generalized. And I feel like the people that are out there trying to implement these technologies in their health systems, and that does not limited to supply chain, right? These are clinicians as well. It's like they're having a hard time wrapping their brain around specific use cases and functions. And I think if we start to anchor the conversations around, real world application, people can start to understand exactly what it is that AI can do for them. I think they have a kind of an idea about what AI is. So Nathan, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. Thanks, Hayes. It's great to be here.
Nathan, why don't you just talk about your background, like introduce yourself to the listeners?
Yeah, will do. So I actually started my career outside of healthcare. So education was computer science. I started in enterprise storage space. So working with these massive cabinets that have terabytes or petabytes of data storage and are really kind of one of the backbones of kind of the cloud and the internet, where it's storing a lot of this data. So I was coding, working on creating different applications that tested the microcode of these systems. And back in 2006, I had an opportunity to join a small startup company. And it was through a connection in my original employer. And this company was in the healthcare space and was really trying to bring a solution to market that would track medical devices from the point of manufacture all the way through the point of use. And so being able to have all of that data in a centralized system. And for the past 19 years, I've been working on various technologies to be able to work towards that. And most recently, the focus is really in kind of the hospital space with systems that are performing data capture in hospitals, integrating with other systems to automate and digitize the supply chain and inventory management.
That's no easy task, right? I mean, I see why we're talking about AI now, because that's a lot of data to pull together. And also, I think there was a key word in there, the integrations piece. To really create that visibility, you almost need AI versus trying to create one-to-one integrations with every possible platform you might need to exchange information with, correct?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I mean, I think because an underlying piece of AI and in order to make it work correctly is data. And I think, data is residing in multiple different systems. And so ultimately, you will need to do some type of integration to get it into kind of more of a centralized place so that AI can start acting on it. I was at a conference not too long ago, all the major tech firms, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Salesforce, they were all talking about data and how people want to apply AI into the space, but the majority, 78% is what they quoted, aren't able to start applying artificial intelligence because the data is not there and it's not reliable. And I think so, you're not going to get around integration. AI won't, solve for that. There'll be a certain level of integration that you'll need to do, but definitely from an automation standpoint, AI will be able to help once it's built on top of that.
One of my most recent meetings, we had a chief pharmacy officer from a very large academic, well-known facility. And he said in pharmacy alone, they had over 100 different databases with all this siloed information, to your point. And the question came up, well, is AI a solution to this? And generally everybody goes, yeah, it would be a huge help to be able to take all this data and, get something meaningful out of it. But then he said, well, it takes us between 18 months and 24 months to buy any technology.
Yeah.
And so basically everyone was like, well, AI is changing every, week to a month. And he goes, oh, I get it. But we're not going to be able to take advantage of any of that, unfortunately. And is that something that surprises you, or is that what you hear as well?
No, absolutely. I mean, not to that level. I think most of the space that I've been in is more on the medical consumables implants side. But I think that it absolutely exists. I mean, there's massive fragmentation of systems, I think, in healthcare. Recently, a lot of focus has been around ERP systems and EHR and kind of getting those down to a single system and up into the cloud. I think you still see a lot of fragmentation around the point of view systems in the place. And so, yeah, your data is in multiple different systems. And if you can't access that data and get into that, then the AI is not really going to be able to help. It really is kind of the linchpin and the foundation to make this work. Whether you're talking about, machine learning all the way up through kind of more of the hype now where we're hearing in the agentic AI space. So yeah, these challenges exist. And even beyond that, I mean, we're still seeing a lot of hospitals performing manual process where the data isn't even being captured at all. So maybe the staff are leveraging, manual processes to do cycle counting, reordering of products, and it's having massive impact. So how can we really start to kind of bring in more of these enterprise systems, reduce the fragmentation, and then, use that as your foundation to start building AI and more of these kind of newer technologies on top of to solve the problems and ultimately automate. And I think these are kind of the big problems that we're seeing in healthcare, but also beyond healthcare to really get good adoption of AI where it's meaningful and solving problems.
In the beginning, you said digitally automated supply chain. So I'd love for you to kind of maybe that's the outline, color it in a little bit and give us an idea of what does that really mean? What would it look like? Maybe, some examples.
Yeah, absolutely. When I think about a digitally automated supply chain, there's multiple systems that are part of that, but I think there are maybe four or five components that really kind of make that up. So first is around the data capture. You need to have technology out there that is efficiently and accurately capturing data in a timely manner. So you're not going out, sending humans out to physically count items or, manually reorder. And so this data capture is a a very important element of a digitally automated supply chain. Second is there's many different systems, as we just talked about. ERP systems, EHR, point of view systems, warehouse management systems, transportation management systems. The list goes on and on. And so you need to be able to have integration between these systems. And also what we talked about, ideally you would reduce these to kind of having large enterprise systems, so you standardize, but then having those systems interconnected, exchanging the relevant information to achieve whatever workflow you're after is an important component of this. Third is really around having a centralized reporting framework. So you need to get the critical data into one place so that you can start driving action and insights into that data. And so how do you do that? Like web technologies now, SaaS technologies are commonplace, and that tends to be kind of how you can see a centralized control tower or area to be able to view this. And it's important, right? So that will allow your inventory managers, inventory technicians to be able to log in, see a dashboard, and then start driving their work, throughout the day. Maybe it's managing expiration, managing recalled items, working on their catalog, understanding what orders didn't come in. They don't need to go and run around and talk to many different people or systems. They're able to get all that information straight from a single source of truth. And then fourth is you need to have some type of analytical capability built on top of that that's allowing you to measure the impact and the outcomes from this. So looking at more trending, and driving actions through that. So that's kind of how I think of a digitally automated supply chain and the critical components that are needed for that.
Nathan, that sounds incredible to have that. But unfortunately, we know too many people that we speak to on here and then in real life as well that they don't have any of those capabilities or very few of them. Is there anybody out there that maybe that has done a really good job in having those four areas pretty much done? In other words, is there a good example of somebody who is kind of end to end?
Well, I don't know if there's a specific example of all of that. I think a lot of people are working towards this. We're seeing a lot of systems out there that are doing that. And I think how have they done that? One is that they focused on, typically they would start with the ERP system and the EHR systems, getting those systems standardized. So across their IDN or hospital or multiple hospitals, they have a single system for both of those, and those exist in the cloud. Second, or kind of coming behind that, we see them deploying point of view systems. So making sure that they have technology that's in place that helps with kind of within the four walls of the hospital to perform quick cycle counting, audits, help with usage capture, et cetera. And a lot of these systems also have kind of the foundational pieces of this. They'll give you the centralized reporting, they'll give you the analytics. And then I think the more mature, kind of larger organizations, we're seeing them start to build out very robust analytics teams and starting to bring their insights and data sitting on top of that, and more homegrown type solutions in that space.
One of the constant tugs is, and I heard you sort of allude to this, but like clinicians doing a lot of work that might be supply chain work, and supply chain wanting to be taking more control of that, right? Like they want to own the supply chain aspects of the role, but you even talked about like expiration. And so unless somebody's actually like running around and clearing out the expired product, ultimately the clinicians are still very much involved in making sure that they're not pulling something off the shelf that has in fact expired, right? And that's kind of a supply chain task, but this is a great example of where it's sort of like you're telling me that you want to own it, but at the same time, I still have to be involved in it. So it kind of creates that weird little overlap that they often deal with. What are some technologies that can help supply chain own the supply chain, especially in clinical areas, and let the clinicians focus on the clinical work without losing the transparency and the obvious overlapping responsibility to the patient?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one big area is around data capture. And so specifically giving supply chain tools to be able to understand what's in inventory and reorder to that inventory. There's a lot of technologies in this space, and there's varying degrees both cost and automation. And so examples, barcode technology has been around forever. Having mobile device scanners, being able to go around and scan products. Much more manual process, but at least you start capturing the information and getting it into a centralized system. RFID, or radio frequency identification, is another technology that's been in the space for decades. What that does is it removes kind of the limitation of having line of sight. So I no longer need to have a human go up and see a barcode and be able to scan it. Now I have a technology that I can go up with that same mobile reader, very quickly scan items. The items might be in front and behind one another. You don't need that line of sight. You're able to read those RFID tags very efficiently. So this, even through a mobile device, allows you to capture this data much more efficiently. So now, where maybe you couldn't do a cycle count every year, now you can use and leverage technology to do cycle counts daily, increasing your accuracy. And then the automation builds further on that. So RFID is an example. There's cabinets out there that will fully automate that, so you no longer need to send humans out to do the counting. In certain use cases, there's technology that are like RFID portals that could pick up tags as you're walking through hallways or doorways, etc. So again, various forms of automation in that space. And we're starting to see new technologies enter into the market. Cameras have started to come down in cost, and we're starting to see some of the AI be built on top of that to allow a level of accuracy where it works, although this is kind of very early on. But I think, I guess one thing, so all these data capturing mechanisms, it allows supply chain to do their job more effectively, capture that data more effectively. And with stronger data, now you know exactly what to reorder, and you reduce potentially not having the right product there at the right time. And I think when the clinicians see that, that's going to build trust for them. They're not going to need to worry about that as much, and so they can focus back on the patient.
I love the RFID technology, because one of the things us nurses used to do is try to hide our just in case inventory in our lockers. And so I wonder if maybe there's a way to pick up on that so that they're not pulling an expired product out of their secret storage location. There'd be a great way to sort of identify that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because the great thing about RFID is it's serializing every item. So an RFID, for those that haven't seen it, you can view it almost as a sticker that you would affix onto the product. And so typically what will happen is you'll go through this registration process where you'll pull in the device-related information, lot, serial, expiration date, what that device is. And then you read the RFID tag, and the RFID tag acts almost like a license plate. And so that's going to be a unique identifier that's worldwide unique, and it's going to tie all the device information into that. So now once that's into the system, you know that product is unique, and as things are being read or not read, you'll be able to pull out exceptions or missing items. And so if somebody's doing a cycle count, the item's missing, right? That's your first warning sign that, hey, maybe we need to go look in the locker and see if it's there.
But back to the technologies of cameras, I know of two companies exclusively, that's what they do. And you listen to them, and it is really encouraging that those cameras can be put in a storeroom or put anywhere, essentially, viewing cabinets and or just inventory. And as soon as anything's pulled or picked, it'll tell you exactly what it is, who did it, when, and all that stuff. And actually, through the AI, it'll start to reorder and everything. So it is kind of fun to see what's coming and how that something like that, and fairly inexpensively, could really be a help, in some of these facilities.
Yeah, it is. I think it's interesting because the technology is always moving forward. RFID, then there was low energy Bluetooth that kind of come in and tried to make its way. Cameras, now it's evolving. I think in the future, as physical AI becomes more promising, we're going to start seeing more robotics in that space. But I think one thing that I've learned over the last almost 20 years is there is no magic bullet technology. There's no one technology that's going to be able to solve everything. And I think as healthcare systems or supply chain leaders are looking at bringing these types of technologies in, what you really need to focus on is a platform that can grow with the technology and ultimately that can leverage many different types of these data capture technologies. It's really kind of the way that we've always looked at it is based on use case, because you have to have some ROI. There has to be some way to financially justify the cost of these. And really, it's a mix and match. You're not going to use RFID for your low dollar items. You're going to, ultimately use a Kanban system, weighted bins, maybe camera system. High dollar could be RFID. Maybe smaller cases, you're going to want a barcode because it's not worth it. So it's really mixing and matching these data capture technologies. But the goal is to eventually get all of that data into one single system, because once you have that data in the single source of truth, that's when you're going to be able to really start taking advantage of AI and some of these other technologies that are coming out.
So, the thing about AI, and we talked about this before, is there's all kinds of different types of AI, and to fly a little bit lower to the ground, there are challenges maybe for health systems to adopt different types of AI. So can you talk about those challenges through the concept of maybe each different type of AI, like agentic AI, or, then the one that everybody's familiar with is obviously the large language model, but can you walk us through challenges in each one of these and what makes maybe one type more usable than another?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there are a ton of different types of AI. I think maybe starting machine learning, which was kind of, years ago, this was what a lot of people refer to as AI. I think that is more common practice now. And so machine learning, this is the type of AI that what ends up happening is the AI system will learn from data in order to make predictions or decisions. And so it's not explicitly programmed to do something. You feed it large amounts of data, it generates a model, and then it leverages that model to make these predictions. So we see this every day. I mean, Netflix is predicting what you're going to watch next. Amazon predicting based on past purchases what you're going to buy. This is, I don't know, I would say maybe more commonplace. It's kind of embedded inside of the analytics systems. And I think here we're not seeing as many challenges to adoption. I think where the hype is today, the generative AI and the agentic AI. So generative AI is where, a system is capable of creating some type of new content. So this is where, we're seeing it through ChatGPT, Copilots, Gemini, all these conversational agents that allow us to kind of do things faster. And then agentic AI, just to define that, it's a system that autonomously will work towards a goal. So you set some goal, you say, I want to achieve this. And then agentic AI, what it's doing is it's going to plan and decide how to execute those tasks to achieve that goal. And this is where most of the hype is in today's world. And I think where most of the challenges are for the customers. So I think one is that the hype is a challenge, right? We're hearing it everyone has agentic AI or some type of generative AI, all the systems out there. And so what is real, what's not real? Just getting through that alone is probably one of the largest challenges. But other areas of challenges include organizational. So now that we have these generative AI or agentic AI, how are we embedding that in our organization? Do we have the right talent? Are we able to upskill our talent? Are we getting workforce resistance in that place? So people just don't trust it, don't want to use it. Are our processes changing as a result of kind of these new tools that can generate things very quickly? And are we looking at how to use the output of that to do something more efficiently? There's financial challenges. The unclear ROI, lack of business cases. This is what's hurting a lot of kind of the agentic and generative, where you're just not getting the ROI coming out of it. And I think definitely outside of healthcare, we're starting to hear that more and more. And I think even in healthcare, where it's just you don't have the business case to do it, so it's not being moved forward. Other challenges to adoption: privacy and security. Obviously, in the healthcare space, this governance is key, and we need to make sure to have the right controls in place. But beyond all of that, I think there's one foundational point that hurts with adoption, and that's data. If you don't have the right data, and by data, the quality of data, potentially the access to the data, the completeness of the data, then these AI systems, regardless of the category, aren't going to be able to produce solid output. And you'll not have trust in the system. Ultimately, your proof of concept is going to fail. And I think this is where a lot of companies in healthcare should be looking now, is around the data piece.
When you say companies, do you mean health systems or do you mean suppliers or do you mean both?
Yeah, both. I think because I mean, what we're hearing now, especially with resiliency management and trying to go further upstream, like a lot of health systems are trying to get a better understanding of the supply chain upstream. What is going to impact me? Have out of stock? What are my demand forecasting, et cetera. And I think, for us to be successful at answering those questions, both medical device manufacturing companies plus healthcare systems and vendors, we need to look at the data and ensure that we're, one, being good stewards of that data, but ensuring accurate data, because that's what will ultimately drive success in this area.
Nathan, we talk about companies. I did a little research before this call, and I have the ability at our most recent meeting to go in and look at some of the transcripts from conversations between providers and suppliers. AI was mentioned 157 times between these providers and suppliers. Everybody's mentioning it. And I can actually tell you which company mentioned it more than the others. But the point is, every single one of them said they do it, they want it, or whatever. And that is actually, I think that message has been messed up in the market. I've literally had guys that are in the facilities business with toilet paper management have AI. There's no ending to where it comes. But to your point, I think I don't know. I think we just have to get a better guardrails on what's capable, because everybody wants to say they do it. At least that's my experience so far. Would you agree? Or Justin?
Yeah, absolutely. Massive hype right now, massive hype. And I think it makes it confusing, and things that aren't really AI are being branded as AI. I think, hey, Hayes, when we were at the CSCE a couple of weeks ago, we asked kind of our panel of, what are some of the biggest challenges and barriers you have? And everyone was like, we don't know where to start. We're just being inundated with different vendors. Everyone's saying that, they're able to solve everything. And it's just, it's chaotic. And so where do you start? And I think this is where health systems and supply chain leaders really need to sit down with their IT teams. They're going to bring the use cases into it. And in collaboration with their IT teams, they can focus and, select a couple different use cases, ensure those use cases that you have the right data and that you're able to build on that and start to move forward. And don't get pulled in too much to the hype. There's a lot of technology out there that is automation that will help. RPA, or robotic process automation, like these are areas where, yes, they're saying it's AI and all of that, but it's really just automating certain processes. And I think you can start to get a lot of efficiencies and benefits coming out of that without jumping into, fully agentic and, trying to automate everything.
Yeah, to the RPA piece, I know Trinity Health in Michigan has done a lot of work in RPA, among others, but I think they effectively have saved 12 or 15 hours in RPAs alone in the supply chain sourcing side. So there's huge upsides to that if we can get it right. But I think that goes back to your point, Nathan. So many of these systems that I interface with, they don't know where to start. They've got there's great technology, and it's phenomenal technology, but trying to get it in the pecking order in the whole structure of IT and letting them actually implement it I think that's the magic grail. How do you figure that out?
Training for adoption, even if they get it, how do they get hundreds of people to get it?
Agreed. But you've got this, architectural plan that IT has created, rightfully so. But if this great new, technology that could save hours or days or thousands, it's hard to get in and use it. I know that's frustrating for the normal guy out in so-and-so, that does this every day. So that, to me, that's the hard part. I was going to say Tommy and
Tupelo. You got to say Rusty and Tupelo.
Rusty, I'm going to give you a shout out, big fella. Go Vols. But anyway, I just think that's one of the challenges that so many of our provider systems are facing. Yeah, the great technologies are there, but actually getting them implemented is just going to be the next challenge.
There was something you said, Nathan. You used the term demand planning, which everybody kind of knows what that is, but not everybody is really capable of doing that. And like the supplier communities and the distributors would love really good, solid, demand planning data from the health systems, but it's been so tough to get it, right? And so I would love to just have you riff on this a little bit before we wrap up, along the lines of like, is AI is it the tech enabling us to get the right data that'll get us to accurate demand planning? Do we need AI to be able to do good demand planning? So it's like the combination of the two. And how far out are we to really actually solving this problem? Because I've seen some people coming at it recently, but hospitals in large part have just been very unable to do that on any kind of large scale.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard because one, the hospitals need the data that they have the demand, right? So if you don't have something that is accurately capturing your usage and storing it in a centralized place, that's a key component of making this work. I think another area that's a hurdle is just the sharing of the data between hospitals, medical device manufacturers, distributors. Each of those entities have a certain portion of that data to really get strong, robust demand planning achieved. And I think we're starting to see this more and more of the sharing of that data, but that's very recent. And so I think until we can kind of find ways to open that up, more efficiently exchange that data, it's going to be hard to really get something out there that's working for everyone.
So last question from me, big movement to the cloud. And I think for obvious reasons, but is it really possible to leverage AI without going to the cloud and with any kind of speed or real-time insights?
No, I don't think so. I think that's a foundational thing, Justin. Yeah. We need to move to the cloud. I think that's where the technologies are being built. And it can happen in multiple forms. I mean, one, the data centers for hospitals and IDNs, they should have already started this journey. Two, you have software as a service. That is kind of a de facto standard now. So through your vendors there, whether it's your ERP or EMR, point of use, WMS, that they should be in the cloud as well. And it's really the cloud that is going to enable kind of any adoption of AI and being able to do that. If you're not running from the cloud, it's going to be very expensive and timely to do that.
I just think about the financial resources for some of these like critical access and rural hospitals. Making that move might not happen as quickly as it is with the larger organizations.
Yeah, but that's why I think you have the SaaS vendors that can help with that. They've got the infrastructure that's already set up. As you're looking at migrating towards those, that should definitely be an area that they're looking into.
Great interview. Anything you want to add before we wrap up?
No, I appreciate the time. Yeah, always a lot to talk about on this topic.
I find it fascinating. I do. I'm just all into it. And so I love it. I think we all have to go there. And the ones that aren't are going to be left behind.
Yeah. And it's fascinating that with data, it goes beyond just kind of the supply chain data now. There's this concept of context memory bank. And so as we think about things and applying AI within organizations, there's a lot of just contextual information of strategies you have, the processes that you're running, whatever project-related information. And I think all of these are also data elements that systems need to start thinking about capturing, whether it's through, recorded meetings, just documenting processes, et cetera, because this will ultimately feed into the AI systems to drive better outcomes and faster automation. Less hallucinations, et cetera. So I think just a lot of very interesting things going on. It's a very fascinating time to be alive for sure. And
exactly.
Just see the amount of change that's happening.
That was Nathan Wicks, VP of Commercial Technologies and Engineering at Cardinal Health WaveMark Solutions. And Hayes, we were both just at your Council for Supply Chain Executives meeting back in November. Great meeting, great conversations. And I love how you brought up the fact that AI, like how many times was it? Over 146 or whatever it was?
I think it was. Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, that's insane.
Well, every conversation is kind of, it almost starts with that, even on traditional things, but it's here, it's on us. We got to figure it out. We got to use it and leverage it. And it's a tool. But we do have challenges with it, just like Nathan said. Access to the right data. Where is the data? Do we have the data? And so a lot of challenges ahead of us, but he did a good job kind of framing all of it.
Yeah, and I think a key takeaway for me was sort of like a two-prong effort of adopting technologies that will capture the data and capture it in a standardized structure and format so that you can leverage AI, because just throwing AI at it isn't gonna get it done. You've got to combine tech with AI to do something that is really gonna, bring those kinds of efficiencies and transform your healthcare supply system. So, your healthcare supply system. Hold on, that's really going to transform, your healthcare supply chain. All right, well, that's going to do it for this week. And on behalf of Hayes and myself, thanks for listening to this episode of Power Supply.
Bam!
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Power Supply. As a reminder, you can help support us by subscribing on your favorite podcast app or by downloading the smartphone app on your iPhone or Android. Simply search for Power Supply in the App Store or Google Play. The best thing about downloading the smartphone app is that you can access bonus content for certain episodes and view episodes in certain categories, like articles on the go and vendor spotlights. Are you following us on LinkedIn or Facebook yet? If you are and you love an episode or post, then let your social network know about it. Like, comment, or share our posts along with your thoughts and keep the conversation going. If you have any topics or guests that you would like to recommend for a future episode, just send us an email to info@powersupplymedia.net. We look forward to hearing from you.